What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here. That's right, another double video day as the hobby continues to turn. Today, this was going around the internet, kind of percolating a little bit. I don't know who found it first. I've had different screenshots and Twitter messages and little videos clipped to me. So whoever you are, I salute you, sir. But I do not know who was first to discover this. But PSA has updated their grading standards. And this is specifically centered around centering. Currently, as of today, if you go look at their grading standards, it says images must be centered on the card within a tolerance not to exceed approximately 55-45 on the front and 75-25 on the back. Okay, interesting. In the past, it was 60-40 or up to 60-40. And by in the past, I mean a couple of weeks ago. This was floating around that someone used the good old Wayback Machine on the internet. And if you go back to around, I believe this is January 14th or 12th on this one, but there might have been one a couple of days after this. Basically, let's just call it mid-January. This is what PSA grading standards said. The image must be centered on the card within a tolerance not to exceed approximately 55-45 to 60-40 on the front and 75-25 on the reverse. So 60-40, the word on the street always was, PSA gets a little loosey-goosey on centering. If it's slightly off, send it to PSA. You might still be able to pull off a 10 if everything else looks good. That appears not to be the case anymore. If you click down the PSA 9, centering must be approximately 60-40 or better on the front, which was obviously the old PSA 10 standards. If we go over to the Wayback, it does not show PSA. I don't have access to the little clicky wheel, so I can't see what it used to say for PSA 9 on the Wayback Machine. But no announcement was made of this. It just kind of happened. They updated their website and someone happened to catch it, like the internet likes to do. I did reach out to PSA to see what they had to say about it, and I did get an official statement from PSA. Quote, "We did recently update the language around our grading standards on our website to specify that the targeted threshold for centering for a card to qualify for a PSA 10 grade is 55-45. This has long been the ideal centering threshold to achieve a PSA 10 grade, though 60-40 was denoted to factor in that at the grader's sole discretion, a small variance may be permitted on occasion based on the card's overall eye appeal. To clarify, this variance from 55-45 for a PSA 10 grade can still happen today, again at the individual grader's discretion, and this centering note is also denoted on our grading standards page." So that is the official word directly from PSA regarding this little stealth change that they rolled out. I will note this does line up with what SGC has for centering. Let me just zoom in on this slightly. When you look at an SGC Gem Mint 10, 55 or better centering is one of the first things listed there in regards to it. So what do we think about all of this? It is something to definitely keep in mind when submitting, that if you're a little close on centering, you might want to back off and potentially now no longer send that card. I will say, I don't like that this was stealth changed. I feel like if grading standards are going to be updated, they should at least draw attention to that language is changing over there. Because listen, the internet's going to find it anyway. That's what the internet does. You slipped it past us for maybe a week or two, but eventually somebody's going to look, and the internet's like Pepperidge Farms. It always remembers. So they're eventually going to track it down and find it, and then they're going to figure out exactly when it changed, because once again, that's what the internet does. So just save us a bunch of grief And, in one of your little monthly announcements or quarterly announcements that you guys do, just go ahead and throw it out there so everyone's on the same page. But I'm sure people submitted cards that they, under normal circumstances may not have if they would have known that the centering standards shifted slightly. So, what do you all think? Is this drastically going to change the way that you evaluate your cards for sending in the PSA for grading, or is it pretty much just business as usual? I know a lot of people were pretty cautious about sending things that were noticeably off-centered to begin with, regardless of the grading company that it went to. For myself personally, I don't know that this is going to affect me that much. Usually if a card is that far off, I'm probably already eliminating it just based off my own eye without even looking at a centering tool on it to see the exact percentage that it's off by. Now, some cards it's tricky to send, it's tricky to tell. You get these inserts sometimes, there's no borders. You're just trying to best guess it as much as you can based off maybe some logo placements or something like that compared to other cards. Things like that could get a little bit tricky, and maybe that's where their little leniency with the 60/40 came in the most. I don't know. I think we have all seen PSA 10s that you look at and you're like, how the hell did that get a PSA 10 just in regards to centering? I'm sure you could find examples of that across the hobby, and maybe this is their idea of tightening that up a little bit. The one thing is, guess what? We're going to be able to tell. We will be able to tell because we have gem rate data. Gem rate tracks his namesake, the gem rate percentage of cards graded every month, and then compiles it for the year. So we are going to be able to see as a community if this is actually having a major trickle down effect or not, or if this is just a slight shifting around of verbiage. Because we know what modern cards, for example, graded gem rate percentage wise, pretty much for the last 3 or 4 years. We could look back at the last few months, the end of maybe the last quarter of 2024, and then start comparing that to what the gem rates look like in the first quarter of 2024. Will that be perfect? Maybe, maybe not, but it at least gives us something to go off of. Maybe we could look at the gem rate percentage of a set from last year compared to this year, or the last couple of months of last year compared to the first few months of this year. Maybe you throw January out because this might have started mid-month, and we'll see what happens in February and March and going forward. So once again, shout out to gem rate. We'll be looking at gem rate data tomorrow for the month of January, but because we have this database that he has built over the years, it will allow us to actually see what sort of impact this is potentially having at a very macro level. If all of a sudden PSA's gem rate plummets, maybe that's a sign that it did indeed tighten up quite a bit. If everything stays relatively the same, or maybe moves like a percentage point, that could just be normal everyday variance. So we are going to have that to kind of lean back on and look at, and actually see what kind of ramifications, if any, this actually has. My big takeaway here is that I just don't like them just changing this and not actually saying anything and kind of leaving it up for the community to kind of figure out. But this is what they have to say about it. Like I said, I reached out to them directly, and this is the word that they gave me from an official standpoint. So just passing this along so everyone is in the loop and everyone can make informed decisions about their grading choices in regards to what they are sending in. Very curious for your thoughts and comments down below. I am sure this has the potential to be a spicier comment section than normal, but we shall see. That's all I got. Catch boys and girls tomorrow for some gem rate data. Off center tomorrow night. Peace.